But the question I want to come and ask you today is, what is your focus? Okay, simple question. What is your focus? I know for disc golf, for instance, focus is to be able to get from start to finish into the target, right? I know that's my goal. I'm trying to get better at putting because I'm not awesome at putting, but I, try to get there, right? So we all try to improve in the game of disc golf. Maybe just in work. Maybe there's things in your work you want to improve. You want to promote. You want to be better at that. Maybe that's something you want to focus on. Maybe in school, you want to get the best grades you can get. You want to be able to graduate and move on to whether it's college or you want to move on to the next level. So on, maybe that's your focus. And maybe obviously family. Maybe family is your focus. Maybe being the best parent you can be, being somebody who can honor God with your life, but also you want to be able to teach and raise your kids to do great things in life as well too. Maybe opportunities you didn't have, you would like them to have. Maybe there's some things there. So what is your focus? Well, briefly, we're going to look at 1 Corinthians, if you have your Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Look at a few verses here. And in Corinthians, Paul is writing this letter to the church in Corinth. And he is basically seeing some things, noticing some things. There's some division in the church. And so he is kind of calling them out a little bit. He's talking to them a little bit, but he's also calling them out saying, hey, there's division. We don't need to have division, okay? So Paul is going to kind of help us maybe answer that question that I had asked you a few minutes ago. But let me start reading in verse 1 of chapter 3. I, brothers, cannot address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as infants in Christ. I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you were not ready for it. And even now you are not yet ready. For you are still of the flesh, for while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way? For when one says, I follow Paul, and another, I follow Apollos, are you not being merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. Verse 10, according to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. I love this passage. I love how Paul just kind of addresses the elephant in the room, right? He's talking to the people who need to hear this word and need to hear it quickly, right? Because you don't want to follow a certain way. If you look in verses 1 through 3, Paul calls out the church at Corinth. They're like babies, right? What does a baby do? A baby's dependent on their parent. They have to have their mama. They have to have their parent, right? They cannot live by themselves, okay? So Paul, when he helped with this church, he wanted them to be able to grow in that. He wanted him to, obviously, when we're a baby, we eventually grow into a toddler and eventually grow into a teenager, scary thing, I know, teenager, and then grow into an adulthood, right? So it's almost like the spiritual walk. He's talking about this on the spiritual side, is helping them see, right now, I've been feeding you milk, but we should be on to solid food by now, but we're not. We're arguing over little things, okay? So 1 through 3, he talks about that. So are you dependent on somebody else? Are you dependent on yourself to feed yourself, right? Okay, so what does it mean to maybe feed myself? What does he mean by that? Well, studying the Word, getting to know more about who God is, who Jesus is, right? That's what he wants you to do. Praying, talking to him verbally, have a relationship. If you have a relationship with Christ, it is a relationship, and any relationship you have, it cannot go one way because that's not a relationship, right? It needs to go both ways. So praying is as much as speaking to God as listening to God. Our life is listening as much. My parents always told me, you listen twice as much as you speak, right? I don't always follow that, but that's the truth, right? You get 2 ears and 1 mouth. And then also, after you study, after you pray, after you learn and prepare and to grow, you then are to disciple, okay? You are then to train others, help others see what you have seen, what God has done through you, right? That is part of us growing, eating solid food, as Paul's talking about. In verses 4 through 6, even good men are not the ones we follow. They are merely messengers. So he talks about, in verse, he says, what then is Apollos? What is Paul? We are servants through whom you believe, as the Lord assigned to each. Okay, Paul says, I planted, okay, and Apollos watered. Okay, but then the next part of this verse, in verse 6, I love it. It says, but God. Okay? So it doesn't matter how much Paul or how much Apollos did for the church. It is still God who is in control. It's still God who provides life. And that's what Paul is making sure that people see. Doesn't matter if Apollos is doing this right, or Paul is doing this right, or other people are doing this right. It is about what God has done through them and how important that is to follow God. So very important when you see but God, that's always exciting to see the next one's coming. But God gave growth. In verses 6, half of 6 and part of 9, only God can change the heart of man. We all have to ask, we all have our task to plant and water, but God only can make it grow. Okay, so think about this. Is Paul and Apollos the only two people who are supposed to plant and water? No, we are as a church. If you have a relationship with Jesus Christ, your purpose is to go out and to share the love of Christ and what Christ has done in your life. That is part of us planting and watering. We cannot personally change the hearts of people. We might get to see that and benefit from it, but we cannot change the heart. Only God can change the heart of people. Only God can change that person who seems hopeless. Only God can change them. That person who seems like they got everything. Only God can change their heart. Because if they live for man, they're not living for God. If they're living for themselves, they're not living for God. They're not living in the right way. And then the last part of this, which I love, says, according to the grace of God given to me like a skilled master builder, and we're not talking about the Lego movie, little Emmett there, we're not talking about him now. The master builder, I laid a foundation, and someone else is building upon it. Let each one take care how he builds upon it. For no one can lay a foundation other than which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. He is our foundation. He is our cornerstone. We cannot grow a life for him unless he is the center of it, unless he is the anchor, right? Unless he's our foundation. That's exciting, and that's important for us to understand. He is the master builder. He is the one that will help us to grow each and every day in our workplace, our school place, in our family, okay, in disc golf even, okay? There's a movie I watched recently with my family, and it's a short movie. It's a 30-minute movie called Most. It's about a dad and his relationship with his son. It's a foreign movie, so your subtitles, right? So you're watching this movie kind of unfold. As you're watching it, this man brings his son to work. And he's a very good son. He's a very good father, have a great relationship. The son is fishing right next to where the dad is working. And the dad's responsibility is the drawbridge, is to bring the bridge up and bring the bridge down before the train comes and the boats come, right? That's his job. Well, the dad goes, checks on things right over here, just a couple steps away from where it is. Well, the train comes early. The boat's going through, the bridge is up. Well, the son sees it, and the son starts yelling. He says, Dad, the train's early, Well, the son cannot get attention to the dad. He's worried about the people. He runs to try to pull the switch by the bridge. He slips and falls, and he gets stuck. He gets stuck under this little crane. The dad sees him. The dad has a choice at this moment to make. Does he save his son and let all those people perish? Or does he save all those people and let his son perish? He sacrificed his son for those people. As the movie is focusing in on these different people on the train, nobody noticed. Nobody knew what he did except for one person. That one person noticed. Noticed something was wrong, something was different. Noticed that this man was crying as they were passing by and noticing the son was not near. She figured it out. She figured something didn't go right. Later in the movie, it happens. He is pondering, did he do the right thing? Did he not? He eventually sees this lady who was very troubled in her life, doing things she shouldn't be doing. She now had a child of herself, and they had a relationship. And he saw what really, truly happened, how God truly saved the day, right? Now, this man hesitated whether or not he was going to pull the lever to save the people or not. You can know this and be assured of this: God never hesitated for you. He absolutely wants you to trust in him completely, that relationship with him. My question again is, what is your focus? Is it on man or is it on God? My challenge for you today is, when you play this great game of disc golf, especially you young players, right? When you play this game, my challenge for you today is, don't just play aimlessly, play with focus, but a focus that will honor God. A focus that will honor God. When you play this game and you are focusing on your target and you're focusing on your spot where you're aiming and throwing and trying to get that perfect throw every time, you can't do it on your own. God cares for you. Okay? Cares for you and cares what you care for. Doesn't mean we're all going to go out there and win. Only going to be one winner, right? Okay? But what does Paul say later in this book, in this letter? He talks about how you run for the prize. So we all go out there and compete and do our best. But we all are hopefully following him and trusting in him. And the outcome will happen. Whatever happens today will happen. But you focus on him when you play this game. If you are here today and you do not understand what it means to have a relationship with Christ, I wanted to make sure you know, my wife up here, she's right there, myself, Eagles Wing staff, they would love to talk to you more about what it means to follow Christ. We would love to tell you about that. But if you are a follower of him, live your life with everything. Don't hold back. Don't let anybody question who you follow and what your focus is.